Seriously, don't have a baby with a guy you've broken up with. Oh, could it be that you couldn't forget about me? Did you think that if you had a child, I'd never be able to cut ties with you? How naive is that? Hey, what do you say? It's just ridiculous. Looking back, breaking up was the right decision. If I had stayed with such a delusional man, I would never have achieved the happiness I have now. Today, I want to talk about my unforgettable dark history and the revolt against it. My name is Lorelei. I'm a 53-year-old housewife who enjoys doing household chores while watching the morning news. I was 38 at the time. I was living peacefully with my husband, Orson. But around that time, a bit of unrest started to creep into our home. Orson would respond to what I said with a "so what?" or in a way that was oddly intimidating or indifferent. So, you see, I would try to continue the conversation, but then he would cut me off with, "I'm busy right now." I felt dismissed and treated with disdain. It wasn't that he was always like this. If anything, he was someone who loved to chat and would crack jokes to make me laugh whenever he had the chance. But then this transformation happened. It was such a sudden change that I wondered if I had done something wrong, but I couldn't think of anything specific. One day, I noticed a faint lipstick mark on the back of a shirt Orson had brought to the laundry. He had come home late from work that day, claiming he had to work overtime. It was hard to imagine that someone at Orson's male-dominated office had leaned against his back with lipstick on. If that were the case, it was too scary to even think about. Could it be a woman, I wondered? Although I naturally came to that conclusion, a lipstick stain alone was hardly conclusive evidence. There could be countless excuses, like accidentally bumping into someone. I decided to wait a bit longer to gather more evidence, carefully checking for any unusual behavior from Orson. Ironically, just paying a little more attention revealed a slew of evidence of infidelity. For instance, Orson would always get up to use the bathroom around 2 a.m. when he was sleeping. I had never doubted him before, but it turned out he was using that time to talk to a woman on the phone. In the bathroom, there were also instances when I found long strands of hair inside his suit jacket, and sometimes, upon closer inspection, his handkerchief seemed to have traces of what appeared to be lipstick. The most damning piece of evidence was a tinted lip balm I found when I borrowed Orson's car for the first time. After 10 years of marriage, the frustration of having Orson taken by someone new, along with the loneliness of not wanting to be alone and the resurgence of my affection for Orson, was overwhelming. Is there no chance of starting over? Isn't there something I can do to make him look my way again? Isn't there a way to rekindle what has cooled off? Just as I was pondering these thoughts, the reality of my pregnancy became clear. Needless to say, I thought pregnancy at this time was a gift from God. We don't have children. The monotony in our relationship might have been the cause of Orson's affair. Maybe this pregnancy could be the chance for him to change. Holding on to that hope, I brought up the pregnancy to Orson. But then what the heck? Give me a break. This is such a hassle. Let's just break up. I couldn't believe my ears. Well, looking back, I think my judgment and expectations were too naive. The likelihood of a man who's cheating coming back is extremely rare. Life isn't like a TV drama where things just work out smoothly. But back then, I truly believed that since we married out of love, we could surely find our way back to each other. Is that really how you're going to say it? It's your child too. Even for the child, it would be better off for a dad like me not to be around. You've realized it too, right? Seeing Orson's smirking face made my heart skip a beat. That I was having an affair, pretending not to know about Orson's affair, and hoping the pregnancy would magically fix everything, felt like I was being pushed off a cliff. At that time, I thought if the affair was brought to light, things would get tense and Orson would never come back. But that was a misjudgment too. I wanted you to find out and did so much to let you, but you never said a word. I was at my wit's end. What? I was waiting for you to say? This is unthinkable. Let's get a divorce. You made me go through a lot of trouble. You're kidding, right? I wouldn't bother with such a hassle if it were a lie. I have a cute 24-year-old girlfriend now. A 38-year-old about to get fat from pregnancy? I have no use for you anymore. Here, take this as alimony or whatever. Just agree on a divorce, he said. After that, I cried for 3 days and nights, and eventually, when Orson stopped coming home, I found the resolve to divorce. 5 years have passed since then. I was afraid of growing old and being single. But fortunately, I remarried my childhood friend Andrew, also a divorcee, and we live modestly with our child Freya. Andrew had been cheated on by his wife too. A fellow survivor of a messy divorce, being comrades who share the same pain, made life with him very comfortable. On our anniversary, he would book a fancy restaurant every year, and for my birthday, he would get me something slightly expensive. I felt cherished. I hope these days will continue forever, as we celebrated another anniversary this year. It was supposed to be a delightful dinner at our usual upscale restaurant. Wow, Lorelei, is that you? The person who gasped upon seeing my face was Orson. What? Why are you here? I couldn't hide my disgust. What a tragedy. I had accidentally run into Orson coming out of the restroom. What I'm here for, a business dinner. Unlike you, I'm busy, Orson retorted, glancing over my shoulder and approaching briskly. Wow, so you had the child, huh? The one you were pregnant with when we split? That's gross, Orson said, grabbing the child's hand, looking closely and beginning to say outrageous things. Seriously, don't have the child of a guy you've broken up with. Oh, could it be that you couldn't forget about me, thinking that if you had a child, I'd never be able to cut ties with you? How naive is that? Hey, what do you say? Orson grinned, seeming to be having a great time, spinning the child around by the hand. Enjoying the story so far? Show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's dive back into the story. The child's face twisted in distress, and he started crying out loud. Daddy, Mommy, help! Some stranger is taking me. There. I'm your daddy and your mommy's right over there. You're just like her, a stupid child. Orson blurted out those words. And suddenly a man towering over, taller than 6 feet, appeared from behind and forcefully grabbed Orson's arm. Excuse me, but that boy is mine. You know what? Orson's bewildered expression almost made me burst out laughing. Huh, is this guy your new husband, Lorelei? Orson asked, confused. I didn't answer Orson's question. I'm not sure what you've been saying, but surely you don't think you can make someone's child cry and get away with it, do you? The tall man said, glaring at Orson. A glimpse of a tattoo peeked out from his arm, and noticing it, Orson instantly turned pale. Wait, Hey, Lorelei, tell your husband to stop, Orson protested. Excuse me, that woman is not my wife, the tall man clarified. What? Confused again. Orson glanced back and forth between me, the man, and the screaming child. What? Then who is this child? Before he knew it, Orson's arms were bound by the man. This man is a lunatic, repeating nonsense. Someone called the staff. There's a man here harming a child. Orson's outcry stirred the restaurant. What a day this turned out to be on such an important anniversary, I thought to myself with a smirk. It turned out to be quite a memorable day. Waiter, over here. I saw this man forcibly grabbing a child's arm. My words left Orson gaping in shock. Wait, Lorelei, what's going on? Seriously, I don't understand what's happening, Orson frantically protested. I said I am not that man's wife, and that child is neither mine nor yours, I explained. But he was right behind you. You were blocking the narrow passage to the restroom entrance, standing there like a post, preventing the boy from entering. He was simply following his father to the restroom, and you obstructed him, I clarified. What? Really? You might want to make people the butt of your jokes, but you should be careful of jumping to conclusions. Why don't you look around a bit more? The tall man interjected. Shut up. I don't need to be lectured by you, Orson retorted. Indeed, my valuable words probably wouldn't reach a suspicious person like you. I'm not a suspicious person, I said with a smirk. Well, any man who approaches an unknown child, grabs their arm, and then uses baby talk like I'm your daddy is undoubtedly suspicious, no matter how you look at it, the tall man added. But that was... And then you tell the woman in front of you a mommy is right there, isn't she? Are you still under the impression that we're married? I questioned Orson with a smirk. As I said this, Orson turned red with anger and shouted, Don't mess with me! But the louder Orson's voice, the tighter the grip of the man holding him. Ow, hey man, back off! I'm innocent! Innocent! Orson protested. It's undeniable that you made my dear son cry, isn't it? I intervened. But that was a misunderstanding, Orson quickly interjected. It's a fact that you misunderstood and assaulted someone else's son on your own accord, I rebutted. Then Orson glared at me and said, You jerk. Yikes! Getting glared at by a suspicious person. How scary, I responded sarcastically, with a hint of mock fear in my voice. This seemed to irritate Orson even more, and he began to struggle wildly against the man restraining him. Thinking you and I are still a couple, huh? Or could it be you haven't forgotten about me? I taunted him with the same accusation he had thrown at me earlier. Predictably, Orson got angry, and sensing the danger, the tall man quickly pinned him to the floor. If you thought you could escape from me, you're sorely mistaken, the man warned. While the man might have meant it lightly, the tattoo visible on his arm made the threat seem all too real. Orson must have thought this might be the end for me today, I thought to myself. Come on, Lorelei, tell them it's a misunderstanding, Orson pleaded. But dragging someone else's child by the hand isn't just a misunderstanding, I retorted. I thought he was my child. Orson's voice broke, resembling that of a child, which made me burst out laughing. You claim him as your child without even acknowledging or paying child support. What did we ever discuss about acknowledgement or child support after our divorce? I questioned. Well, no, but you knew, Orson responded, realizing his error. I had no intention of acknowledging it, which is why you never contacted me, right? Idiot. I wouldn't just let it go. If I had a child, I'd make sure you acknowledged and paid up one way or another. Then why, at that time, the pregnancy test was wrong? I went to the gynecologist, and it turned out I wasn't pregnant, which solidified my decision to divorce. Yes, during those 3 days when the topic of divorce came up and Orson stopped coming home, it's true that I spent that time crying. But considering I might have had a child, I couldn't just divorce without clarification. So I first went to the gynecologist. I wanted to sort out alimony, child support, and future living expenses. In my head, even if we were going to divorce, if avoiding the divorce would benefit the child, I was prepared to endure. However, at the gynecologist, there were no signs of pregnancy, but they did find a tumor on my ovary. During the surgery for that, I happened to share a room with Andrew's mother. Andrew and I were childhood friends, so I knew his parents well. Reuniting with Andrew during his visits, we became close again. At one point, I thought of the pregnancy as a blessing from God to make things work with Orson, but in reality, it brought me to someone who made me realize that parting ways with Orson was the right decision. And it also led to the early detection of my illness. Despite having one ovary removed last year, I gave birth to Freya, my child with Andrew. It may seem like I've been through a lot, but in truth, it's all been for the best. Upon learning everything, Orson turned pale and muttered, "No way, I got dumped by that woman." Needless to say, I couldn't help but laugh. Well, it's no surprise a young woman wouldn't want to be with an aging man like him. At that moment, a police officer appeared. It seems someone from the restaurant had called them. Orson received a stern warning from the police. It seems the misunderstanding was cleared up, and he apologized profusely to the child's family, which prevented the situation from escalating. The scolding from the police seemed to have hit him hard. He even came to apologize to me. Since Orson doesn't know where I live now, he went to my parents' house to express his apologies to my mother. He admitted that the way we parted was the worst and that he was wrong. Aging, having been abandoned by his affair partner and finding himself increasingly isolated, the recent incident seemed to have broken him, leaving him to feel the loneliness of having no one to comfort him. Well, it's too late for apologies now, as far as I'm concerned. I continue to ignore Orson. Honestly, if we hadn't met there, I probably would have gradually forgotten about him altogether. By the way, Andrew noticed I hadn't returned to our table for a while and came to the restroom to check on me. However, he decided to watch from the shadows, thinking this might be Lorelei's first and last chance to get back at Orson. Of course, I was ready to jump in if anything happened, but that guy restraining Orson was just too strong. That guy apparently used to live in Mexico and was the captain of a football team there, I mentioned. No wonder he's strong. Guess I had no role to play there. I was seriously scared, thought he was from some dangerous profession or something, Andrew said with a laugh, and I couldn't help but laugh along with him. Normally one might say something like, "Not very manly of you," but Andrew doesn't have to deal with Orson, and I believe it was a problem I needed to resolve myself. I acknowledged that I lacked strength during the divorce. In the end, I simply went along with the divorce as Orson wished and received a standard amount of alimony from Orson and his affair partner. Reality doesn't always progress like a fairy tale, so getting an exorbitant alimony was out of the question, and I had lost the strength to fight back. But I believe I finally became truly strong by standing up to him with unwavering resolve. In the end, now I can proudly face Andrew and Freya. Coincidentally, this year's anniversary became a new beginning for me. And now, with Andrew becoming a freelance architect and his income doubling, I quit my part-time job and am enjoying life as a relaxed housewife. When I ask Freya, who's somewhat in a rebellious phase, to do something, she complains. But when I stay silent, she quietly helps out. This trait of hers is something that only Andrew and I see, secretly finding it irresistible. Though Freya is our only child due to a late pregnancy, our family of 3 and our 2 dogs live a life that's lively, perhaps too much so. Despite never having children with Orson, I was able to conceive and give birth at an older age with Andrew, even with just 1 ovary remaining. In a way, I consider this to be fate. As a child, I secretly dreamed of marrying that special someone destined just for me. And who would have thought that dream would come true with a second marriage? Sometimes I allow myself to indulge in such dreamy thoughts. With these reflections, I cherish the ordinary days that come my way. Days that are anything but ordinary, filled with love and gratitude. Let's conclude with our story. As time passed, Lorelai found herself embracing her new life with Andrew and Freya. Their family grew closer each day, filled with love and laughter. Despite the challenges she faced, Lorelai emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Orson's presence faded into the background of her memories, a chapter of her life she had closed long ago. She no longer dwelled on the past, choosing instead to focus on the bright future ahead with her newfound happiness. Through it all, Lorelai realized that sometimes life takes unexpected turns, leading us down paths we never imagined. But in the end, it's how we navigate those twists and turns that define us. And so, with a grateful heart and a renewed sense of purpose, Lorelai embraced each day with hope and optimism, knowing that the best is yet to come. Thanks for watching. How did you find the story? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome stories like this. Your feedback and support mean a lot.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.